Good morning, everybody. As Todd mentioned, my name is Denny Doyle, National Sales Manager for Edge Safety Eyewear. And before we get into the safety certification video that Todd referenced, just got a few slides. Want to give you a little more information about who we are and kind of our value proposition. So we're a manufacturer of safety eyewear. So the company's based in Layton, Utah, and that's all we do is eyewear. Layton's about a half hour north of Salt Lake City, been around since 1998. And we're really known as the guys that bring style, comfort, and lens technology to the safety eyewear world. And one of our claims to fame is we're the first ones to bring polarized lens technology to safety eyewear. So our motto as a company is work safe, play safe, and you'll hear more details to that in the video. But one interesting point is that a lot of people don't realize this, but 63% of all eye injuries happen away from the job. And it's while you could be hunting, fishing, cutting wood, cutting your grass, weed eating. And so we really want to stress the message, work safe, play safe, and we'll talk more about that in the video. You can move on to the next slide. So a little bit about our products. They're all meet and exceed the ANSI Z87.1 standard, as well as the military MSEP standard that is out there. MSEP stands for Military Combat Eye Protection Standard, and it's a more aggressive standard than the ANSI standard. And so all of our lenses are a military grade, and they're actually ballistic rated, and you'll see more details on that in the video. One thing that's important to note, with the crazy times right now with the coronavirus, all of our products are classified as medical devices for the FDA. And so as a result, that's really increased demand for a lot of our products. In particular, our military grade anti-fog technology, Vapor Shield, which we'll talk more about. And then also our products are available with a foam gasket as well. And that provides an airtight seal. And again, we've had a lot of demand there as a result of the coronavirus. If you can move to the next slide. So a little bit more about our Vapor Shield, and you'll see this in the video, but we have a real neat solution. It's a military grade anti-fog, and now that everybody is going to be wearing a mask moving forward, it appears. I know the automotive industry in particular are requiring everybody to wear an N95 mask, whether you are an employee or you're visiting on site as a supplier. We've been working with some of the big three, and fogging is an issue when you're wearing these masks. So our Vapor Shield product is a great solution, and they will not fog up when you're wearing a N95 mask, or a construction worker might be wearing some type of other mask. Vapor Shield was a great solution. We've really seen significant demand for this, and you'll learn more about this in the upcoming video. You can go to the next slide, please, Todd. And then also we've got a variety of foam gaskets, and we've seen significant demand there as well. So what you're looking at here is our more popular frames that are available with a removable foam gasket. And then if you go to the next slide, you'll see we've got numerous options with pre-applied gaskets. So these are a permanent type gasket. So you combine the Vapor Shield anti-fog technology with the foam gasket, and it's really the ultimate in safety eyewear. Go to the next slide. And so we'll get into the safety training now, and this is a value-added service that we offer as an organization to you and your customers. There's no charge for this, but we work with a lot of safety directors and safety managers, and we do this training, and ultimately it helps get our product spec'd into a lot of places. If you can go to the next slide, Todd. Really the mission of the training that you'll see, it's twofold. Number one, we want to help provide you with more information to help you make better educated decisions to protect your eyes when you're in the field. And then number two, it's just to help you become certified in the ANSI Z87.1 standard as it relates to safety eyewear. So there's 3 sections to the safety certification. Number 1, we'll discuss the problem. You know, there's way too many eye injuries happening today that could be avoidable. So we'll share some of the industry statistics with you. We're going to talk about what's the difference between ANSI and OSHA. There's a lot of confusion there. And then what's the difference between safety eyewear and sport fashion eyewear? And we're referring to the, you know, the Oakleys, the Costas, the Ray-Bans. What's the difference between the sport fashion versus the safety eyewear? So what's being done? Why are there standards? And then lastly, we'll talk through the different elements of helping you build a safety eyewear program. And so with that, we can tee up the video and we'll get back with you after the video.
Hi, thank you for joining us for the Edge Eyewear Safety Certification Training. Our purpose today is twofold, and it's consistent with our objectives over the last 20 years. First of all, we're in the business of protecting people's eyes. First way that we can do this is
Sorry about that, Denny. Give me 1 second.
You bet.
Hi, thank you for joining us for the Edge Eyewear Safety Certification Training. Our purpose today is twofold, and it's consistent with our objectives over the last 20 years. First of all, we're in the business of protecting people's eyes. First way that we can do this is by designing and manufacturing good quality, independently tested safety eyewear that people want to wear. The second thing that we can do is get out and teach safety standards and good safety practices for people who are wearing the eyewear. That's what we're here for today. Let's get started. Section number 1. Let's talk about the problem. First of all, way too many people are getting injured. We're going to talk about some of the statistics. Number 2, there are some myths and misconceptions that we have heard as we've been out in the industry over the last 20 years about what the safety standards are and what they are not. We're going to cut to the chase and find out exactly what the truth is there. The third thing is sport and fashion eyewear versus safety eyewear. They're not built the same. They're not made for the same purpose. We're going to talk about that a little bit in terms of protecting our eyes with the right equipment. Now, let's get back to injuries. The Center for Disease Control tells us that there are 10,000 eye injuries in North America every day. That is devastating. Now, the good news to that is, if there is any, 8,000 of those people, I get something in my eye, I wash it out, I'm okay. But the Department of Labor reports that 2,000 people every single day that receive eye injuries need medical attention and time off work. Again, the statistics are way too high, too many people getting injured. Now, additionally, the Bureau of Labor brings in another point that 85% of these injuries require up to 5 days off work. See, this is our only unprotected organ. Everything else is protected, but this organ does not heal quickly, if at all, and is certainly not replaceable. We've got to protect it with something. The most interesting statistic in our mind then comes from Prevent Blindness of America. They've reported that 63% of eye injuries are happening away from work. Now, when we heard that, we thought, no way, how could that be? But let's stop and think about that for a moment. If I'm on a job site and I have particles flying around and dangerous objects coming at my eyes, and I have a safety professional telling me to get my eyewear on, I'm a little more likely to wear my safety eyewear. But what's happening when I go home or recreating? Oftentimes, we don't think that we need safety eyewear in those environments, and we certainly don't have any regulation or people helping us to put our safety eyewear on in appropriate times and places. That is where the eye injuries are happening. Let's talk about what's being done to protect people's eyes on a national level. There are 2 organizations helping us with this. Number 1, ANSI, and the second is OSHA. Who are these organizations? What do they do? Let's talk about that a little bit, because this is some of the myth and misconception that we have heard. ANSI is an organization that writes safety standards. A safety standard basically does three things for us. It tells us how to manufacture safety eyewear, how to test safety eyewear, and how to use safety eyewear. In essence, we can condense their recommendations down into these three categories. Now, that is ANSI's responsibility. OSHA then comes in and polices the standard or enforces the standard and makes sure that what's been recommended is being used on our job sites. So when we're looking for safety rated eyewear and compliant eyewear, and the reason that we bring up these two organizations, we're looking for ANSI compliant eyewear. ANSI writes the standards, not OSHA. We're not looking for OSHA approved, OSHA certified, OSHA compliant. Let's get our terminology down correctly. We're looking for ANSI compliant eyewear. Now, as we think about compliant eyewear, we wonder, how does a pair of eyewear become compliant? Well, oftentimes it's tested, but is it always tested? Research has shown that out of all the manufacturers that are making safety eyewear, only 40% are tested in independent laboratories. Now this again seems strange. How could that be? Remember that these are recommendations that ANSI writes, not mandatory. So if an organization producing safety eyewear does not test, they are not held to that standard. That is the responsibility of safety directors to make sure that they're providing compliant eyewear to people. How do we know if a pair of eyewear is compliant? We'll talk about that later. The last point that we want to make in this section is to talk about the difference between sport and fashion glasses and safety glasses. How do I know the difference between the two? If I were to show you one from the other, is there anything that indicates that this glass, the safety glass, will protect my eyes, whereas this one does not have that same indication? Yes, there is. Many of you know that on sport and fashion glasses, there are no markings indicating safety rated. On safety glasses, however, lens, frame, and temple all have markings on them that show that this glass has been designed and built to protect my eyes. Now let's talk about these markings for just a minute. First of all, they reference the standard ANSI Z87.1. And in this standard, we are required to make sure that this glass can pass impact standards and optical standards. An interesting thing, years ago, Private Pilot magazine was interested in the optics for sport and fashion glasses. So they ran them through the ANSI testing to see what would happen. We have an article here from Private Pilot magazine that explains the difference. Now, before we go into it, let me explain how this works. The test that they use, which is testing the resolution of the lens or the ability for it to focus light and keep a clear, pristine vision, is conducted in this way. You have a projector that projects this image that you see on the screen through the lens onto the wall 35 feet away. Now, when that image is projected through the lens, the operator looks to see the clarity of that image that is being projected through there when it's projected through the lens and when it's projected without the lens. In this article, you can see that in some cases, as the image was being projected through the lens, the image shifted up and down, side to side, and even became blurry. Now, what does this mean? Does it mean that all sport and fashion glasses have bad optics, and if I put them on, I'll stumble around and I can't see what I'm doing? No, that's not what it means. We're talking about very minute calculations here. But what we are saying is this. The optics on sport and fashion glasses may be good, and they may not. You'll never know, because they are not held to a standard. Conversely, on a pair of safety glasses, you can always trust, if this is independently tested and compliant, that these glasses will have pristine, crystal clear objects, because safety glasses are held to a standard. This is the point that we want to make. You can always trust safety glasses to protect your eyes from flying objects and in your optics as well. Section 3, testing standards. Let's explore the ANSI test to see what it takes to make a safety glass compliant. First of all, as I mentioned, the safety standards have two sides to it. Number one is the impact side, because I need to protect my eyes from flying objects. The second part of it is the optical side, because I need to be able to see what I'm doing. Now, backing up, the standard was created back in 1968. It's been revised 5 times since then, and the current standard is the ANSI ISEA Z87.1 2015 standard. That is current. Over the last several years, as they've changed the standard, it's moved toward a hazard-based structure. What does that mean? That means that employers and users are supposed to match the hazard with the product markings, or in other words, what the product, the safety device, can do for them. If I'm working around chemicals, I need splash goggles. If I'm working in a place that I need a face shield, then that's appropriate. If I'm welding, I need welding protection. Now, remember, always use eyewear in conjunction with machine guards, engineering controls, and sound safety practices. Eyewear in and of itself won't protect us if we don't have good safety practices. Let's get back to the impact and optical that we described. On the impact side, what we're trying to do is test the lens and the frame to make sure that if a flying object comes at my eyes, that I will be protected. To do this, ANSI requires us to do things like drop a spike, a 17.6 ounce spike from 50 inches in the air onto the lens, and watch and see what happens. We also drop a needle. We drop a steel ball. We also take a pneumatic machine, pump it up, and have a 1/4 inch steel ball come at the lens at 150 feet per second. In each of these cases, and in other things that we do to test the impact, we're looking to see if the lens will fracture, if the rear surface will be penetrated, if it's detached from the frame, or if in any other way the lens fails, allowing that object to hit my eye. Now, we talked about the standard and how a standard will protect us from flying objects up to a certain point. There are organizations out there that are concerned with impacts that are at a lot greater velocity than what we might find in the job sites in our workplaces. For example, the military. They're dealing with velocities that are far greater than what we find in our job sites. And with that said, they have created their own standard called the MSEPS GLPD 1012. This is a standard that, for the most part, adopted what ANSI recommended, but in terms of impact, they require the steel ball that would typically travel at 150 feet per second to travel at 660 feet per second, testing that lens at a far greater impact than you would normally find. Now, some of these velocities may be hard to describe. So let's cut away to a video and watch some of these velocities go up against safety lenses and see what happens. Now, let's look at the optical side of things. We understand that safety eyewear can protect my eyes from flying objects, but I also need to be able to see what I'm doing while I'm working. We talked a little bit about, when we described the Private Pilot magazine, the resolving power test. What we're trying to do is make sure that we have pristine, clear optics as we look through that material. Additionally, we have a luminous transmission test. We want to make sure that the light going through the lens does not get altered or filtered in a negative way. Refractive power test that could bend our vision or create images to shift right to left or up or down could also be a thing that causes us to fail the optics testing. If our lenses have a prismatic power, as a prism can bend light, we don't want our lenses to do the same. And astigmatism, you may have heard this from your optometrist, that if our lens is not properly shaped or has flat spots on it, that we could have problems with our vision as well. For more details, look at our website or in your booklet to see how these are conducted and how they will protect our vision and make sure that we have pristine optics. Perhaps the most important message that we will talk about today refers to finding safety eyewear that is independently tested and compliant with the ANSI standard. Earlier we discussed that only 40% of the manufacturers of safety rated eyewear are independently tested by outside laboratories. And we said, how can we find that 40%? Here's how we do it. Within the ANSI standard, in section 2.3.5, it says that the protector manufacturer, which in this case would be Edge Eyewear, shall provide test reports to the purchaser upon request. What does that mean? That means that you, as the purchaser, have the right and obligation, in our opinion, to see independent test reports to make sure that that safety rated eyewear is what it says it is, a compliant pair of eyewear that's going to protect my eyes. Please ask for test reports before buying any eyewear on the market. You have the right to do so according to ANSI.
Section 4. Let's create a plan to effectively use safety eyewear to protect our people on the job site.
What kinds of things do you think we hear as we have asked people what happened when they received an eye injury? Well, in doing some research, there are many common responses after eye injuries that you might recognize. Number one, the first thing that we hear over and over and over is, I never thought it would happen to me. We hear things like, I didn't think I needed safety eyewear at the time. My company doesn't offer well-fitting, stylish eyewear. I had no choice in the eyewear issued. Proper lenses for the environment in which I work are not available. My glasses fogged up. My company does not offer lanyards to keep the eyewear close when needed. My boss is not wearing safety eyewear. We've also heard that people don't have an eyewear policy, and the policy is not being enforced. These are some of the things that we have heard, and you may have heard others. All of these are legitimate reasons why people have not worn their safety eyewear, even though inexcusable. What can we do about this? We can build a program to answer every one of those problems. In doing so, the ANSI Z87.1 2015 guide has a section near the back that helps us identify what type of eyewear we should be using in what type of environments. Some of the things that we may consider might include light conditions, employee head size, high debris area, humidity and fogging. Things like this should be considered when we're trying to build a program. Let's go to one of the most common ones that we hear over and over and over. My glasses fogged up. What can be done about that? Well, the good news is that there are manufacturers that are building anti-fog glasses. One of the best out there is called Vapor Shield. This technology is absolutely impervious to fog, As you can see in a demonstration here, a pair of standard safety glasses has no chance of resisting fog when put up against even the smallest amount of steam, compared to the Vapor Shield glass that is absolutely impervious to fog and that will not blur our vision with fog or steam, regardless of how long it's held in this rough and difficult environment.
Test number 1, humidity. Test number 2, freezing. Test number 3, fogging.
At the end of the day, what we are trying to create is a program that everybody on our job sites knows exactly what they should be wearing, when, and where. Here is an example of an organization that created eye protection standards for their job site. And they broke down the job site into 3 different types of tasks that people were doing. In doing so, you can see on the right-hand side, it says that if people are doing a certain type of tasks, they have to wear the eyewear in example 1. If they're doing tasks in section 2, they need to wear the glasses associated with that hazard. And same thing with number 3. This is a proper use of the ANSI standard to build a program that everybody knows what they should be doing and what eyewear they should be wearing in what places of the job site. Additionally, let's make sure that our glasses are properly fitted. We won't spend a lot of time on this section, but again, in your book there, it has step-by-step guide to how to conduct a fit test for our people and make sure that we're wearing the right eyewear for our facial structure. Let's do a demonstration. We need your help. Let's test safety eyewear and see just how strong they are. To do so, first, put on your safety eyewear. Second, if you'll take a hammer and a lens that we have provided you that is from a safety glass and a lens that is from a standard pair of sport and fashion glasses, let's watch and see what happens as it's struck with this hammer. Let's start with the non-compliant sport and fashion lens. You can see that even with the smallest hit, that lens becomes shrapnel. Can you imagine if a projectile went into my face and hit that lens? Not only would I have that projectile in my eye, but also these sharp pieces of shrapnel would impale my eye as well. Let's compare that to a safety lens. A safety lens is made of polycarbonate. The hit that I'm going to give this one is much stronger and will hit it multiple times. As you can see, no effect. Even harder. Again, you can see the impact point, but no effect. How about 2 more? And 1 more for good measure. The point here is that safety lenses are much stronger than sport and fashion glasses in the materials that they often use. Test it for yourself. What did we learn from that demonstration? Well, one thing that we could deduct from that is that materials matter. If materials matter, we want to make sure that wearing the best safety eyewear possible to protect my eyes. Certainly we want something that is compliant with the ANSI Z87.1 standard and that is independently tested and compliant. However, you might want to go beyond that, as would I. Materials that are being used in the sport and fashion world are not the same as safety glasses. In this particular case, safety glass frames are often made out of a very pliable material that is soft but very, very strong and can withstand bending, twisting, or any of the other abuse that you might find as they're out on the job site. This is a very strong frame and can take a lot of abuse. As you saw with the lens, a glass that can take multiple hits from a hammer compared to a lens that could barely take a small hit are not even in the same level of protection. Let's make sure that we're using polycarbonate material for protecting our eyes, which is what comes in safety glasses. Now, polycarbonate material has an additional benefit. It has the ability to filter out UV light, A, B, and C, and make sure that we're not going to cause damage to our eyes with the sun's harmful rays. Let's conclude with a couple things here. First of all, as safety professionals, we want to keep our people safe. In order to do so, let's make sure that we are offering glasses that are compliant with ANSI ISEA Z87.1 2015 standards. Let's make sure we ask for test reports by an independent third-party laboratory. I personally would also ask for samples. I'd personally bend the frame, I might hammer the lens, but I want to see what I'm putting on people's faces. At the end of the day, safety is up to 3 people. Number 1, the manufacturer brings sport and fashion features, comfort, technology, styling, and fit to the safety eyewear world. We want to give people glasses that they want to wear on our job sites with all the features and benefits that you would find in any other eyewear. The second person involved in safety is the safety professional. The safety professional should ensure compliance by looking for independent third-party test reports. The third person that will help us keep people safe is you. Your responsibility is to wear the glasses. Let's be safe out there.
Great. Well, thank you everybody for participating in the safety certification video. And just something to keep in mind, this is a value-added service that we offer at no additional charge to you or your customers. So we'd love to work with you and help you build some safety eyewear programs with your end user customers.